if you look at the major banks globally, they probably spend about $1 billion a year on compliance, $1 billion US. That's a lot of money, a lot of pressure on margins, on return on equity right now. Not only is it a large amount, but a lot of it is being spent in relation to remediation programs, reaction to action being taken by regulators. So if you look at, for example, KYC or transaction monitoring, that's where a lot of resources are being spent at the moment. And so banks have gone through a process over the last 3 or 4 years where the regulators have really stepped up the requirements. To meet those requirements, banks have generally used human labor because systems take 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, to develop and implement. So we've seen a huge upscaling in the size of compliance teams globally, and particularly here in Singapore and across the region. So what we're looking at now is how can you make that more cost effective? So maybe instead of having 1,000 people looking at transaction monitoring alerts, and of those transaction monitoring alerts, 99% of them are false alerts and only 1% getting filed as STRs. That's clearly not the most cost-effective way of surveilling the transactions that are going through the bank. So we're seeing a lot of focus on the use of technology to try and improve the cost-effectiveness of compliance. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of the processes that are in place in compliance now, quite a lot of those processes would involve a lot of manual steps which aren't really adding value to the bank at the end of the day. So if you look at transaction monitoring, if you look at the typical alert clearance process, you'll have an alert queue, the analyst will have to go into a system to get data on the client, maybe go into another system to get transaction data, past historic transaction data. Maybe they have to open up 3 or 4 different systems, extract data, and then start the analysis. Clearly, if you can automate that process, then one, it makes the analyst's job a lot more interesting, but also two, makes it much more cost effective for the banks.